Over the years, Doctor Who has been shaped by many influential figures on both sides of the camera, people who have steered the show in new directions and helped define what it has become. When the programme began in 1963, however, television was a heavily male-dominated industry. It would be easy, therefore, to assume that the biggest creative forces behind Doctor Who were all men. From day one, the series has been powered by remarkable women, not as a token presence, but as innovators, specialists, and creative leaders who helped shape the programme and, in some cases, left a lasting mark on British television itself. So, as a bit of a break from the norm, this video does something slightly different. We're celebrating the women who helped define Doctor Who, both on screen and behind the scenes, focusing on 5 in particular whose influence has been truly profound. This isn't a ranking, and there's no countdown here. You may feel I've left someone out, and if you do, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But the women we're looking at today each left a mark on Doctor Who in ways that stand out and deserve to be celebrated. So take a seat as Doctor Who's female heroes take centre stage. Doctor Who's theme tune has been one of the show's greatest constants. The arrangement has evolved over the decades, but the melody remains unmistakable. From the very beginning, it helped establish the programme's mood. Its eerie, experimental sound worked in perfect harmony with Bernard Lodge's hypnotic title design, a visual blueprint that still echoes through the series today. The music itself was composed by Ron Grainer, a prolific writer for television and film, but the sound we recognise, the sound that made the theme extraordinary, was realised and brought to life by Delia Derbyshire at the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. Faced with a science fiction programme unlike anything else on television, Derbyshire created what is widely regarded as the first electronic theme tune for a TV series. Using techniques rooted in musique concrète, she constructed the piece note by note. Individual sounds were produced by recording a single plucked string and manipulating the tape through cutting, splicing, looping, and altering playback speed. Oscillators generated tones, white noise added texture, and each element was painstakingly assembled by hand. And this was in 1963. This was before computers were used in music production, even before multi-track tape machines became common use later in the decade. The time and precision required was extraordinary, but the result was revolutionary. Because of Derbyshire's work, the Doctor Who theme tune became one of the most iconic and recognisable pieces of television music ever created. At a time when such sonic experimentation was largely confined to an avant-garde circle, she brought electronic sound into the mainstream. Her techniques helped spearhead the electronic music movement that would influence popular music for decades. Artists such as the Chemical Brothers, Aphex Twin, and Orbital have all cited her work as an inspiration, and she has since been described as the unsung heroine of British electronic music. That label might never have been applied had she been publicly recognised for her groundbreaking work at the time. When Ron Grainer first heard Derbyshire's realisation of his composition, he famously asked, "Did I write that?" So impressed was he that he pushed for Derbyshire to receive a co-credit and a share of the royalties. But BBC policy required the Radiophonic Workshop members to remain anonymous. As a result, Derbyshire received no credit on screen. In fact, it wasn't even until the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor in 2013, that her contribution was formally acknowledged. Derbyshire stopped producing music in 1975 and later worked for British Gas, in an art gallery, and in a bookshop before her death in 2001 at the age of 64. There is a quiet sadness in the fact that her contribution, not only to Doctor Who, but to electronic music as a whole, went largely unrecognised during her lifetime. Yet her legacy is unmistakable. Her experimental, groundbreaking approach helped Doctor Who stand apart from its earliest moments. The theme remains one of the show's defining elements, evolving with time, yet always rooted in her original vision. And it raises an intriguing question. If the Doctor Who theme tune had been a conventional piece of music, would the show have felt quite so alien, quite so distinctive, and quite so unforgettable? Being the first in any field is an extraordinary achievement. Others may follow and even surpass you, but no one can take away the fact that you were the original. And that is certainly true of our next entry. Patricia Russell, better known as Paddy, broke the mould at a time when many roles in television production were still dominated by men. She began her career as an actress, but quickly realised she was far more interested in what was happening behind the camera than in front of it. During the 1950s, Russell moved into production and became the BBC's first female floor manager. By the early 1960s, she had worked her way up through the ranks to become one of the first women to direct for the BBC, the other being Julia Smith, who would later co-create EastEnders. Both Russell and Smith were given opportunities on Doctor Who in 1966, with Paddy Russell earning the distinction of becoming the programme's first female director. Her debut was the now missing historical serial The Massacre, which, despite its lost status, is still regarded as one of the finest examples of Doctor Who's pure historical storytelling. Interestingly, Russell had been considered for the series even earlier, when she was earmarked to direct The Edge of Destruction during Series 1, a sign of how highly she was regarded in the BBC's early drama production ranks. It would be 8 years before she returned to the programme, directing the third Doctor story, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, in 1974. This presented a very different challenge from her earlier work, with the production relying heavily on ambitious, if not entirely convincing, special effects. Regardless of the results, the story demonstrated Russell's willingness to embrace technical and creative challenges. Her most celebrated contributions came during the Fourth Doctor era. In 1975, she directed Pyramids of Mars, a story widely regarded as one of the highlights of Tom Baker's tenure. Russell later spoke about her involvement in refining character dynamics and shaping aspects of the narrative to strengthen its dramatic impact. 2 years later, she returned to direct Horror of Van Rock, a production beset by last-minute changes and logistical upheaval. The story was filmed at BBC Studios in Birmingham rather than the programme's usual London base, and had been rapidly commissioned to replace another story late in the schedule. Despite these challenges, the finished serial is now considered one of the most atmospheric and effective stories of the era. Across these productions, Russell demonstrated a remarkable adaptability, directing historical drama, heavy effects-laden science fiction, gothic horror, and claustrophobic suspense, and in doing so, across 3 different Doctors. Beyond Doctor Who, she directed a wide range of television drama, soaps, and science fiction programming before retiring in the early 1990s. It might be tempting to suggest that her role as the show's first female director was simply a matter of timing or circumstance. But Paddy Russell's legacy is far more substantial than that. She helmed 4 very different stories, across 3 very different Doctors, each presenting unique production challenges, and succeeded in an era when female directors remained a rarity. Over the years, other women such as Fiona Cumming, Mary Ridge, and Sarah Hellings would go on to direct Doctor Who in the classic era, and nowadays in the modern era, it is quite common practice for female directors to be involved in the show. But Paddy Russell was the pioneer. She didn't just open the door, she proved it could be walked through. And in doing so, she broke the mould not only for Doctor Who, but for British television itself. So far, we've looked at influential figures behind the camera, but Doctor Who has also been shaped by the women we see on screen. The role of companion is arguably the part most defined by strong female characters. Over the years, companions have ranged from academics and professionals to the more traditional screen queen archetype. But one actress redefined what a companion could be, how they should be portrayed, how they built chemistry with different Doctors, and how they can exist as an independent character with longevity rarely seen in the role. That actress was Elizabeth Sladen. Sladen made her debut as Sarah Jane Smith in the 1973 season 11 opener The Time Warrior. Introduced as a determined investigative journalist, Sarah infiltrates a unit facility and, driven by curiosity, sneaks aboard the TARDIS, travelling back to medieval England with the third Doctor out to thwart the Centauran warrior Lynx. The character quickly formed a strong on-screen partnership with Jon Pertwee's Doctor, mirroring the genuine warmth between the actors themselves. This partnership proved short-lived when Pertwee left the role at the end of the season, paving the way for Tom Baker's vastly different Fourth Doctor. Ordinarily, such a change might have spelt the end of a companion. Companions are often designed to complement a specific Doctor, and a regeneration can leave them feeling mismatched or redundant. But Sladen's portrayal of Sarah Jane proved remarkably adaptable. She transitioned seamlessly from Pertwee's authoritative, suave Doctor to Baker's eccentric, unpredictable incarnation, while retaining the character's core strength and identity. Sarah embodied everything one might want from a companion. She shared a deep friendship with the Doctor, yet wasn't afraid to challenge him, often grounding his alien perspective with human insight. At the same time, she reflected the growing feminist spirit of the 1970s: intelligent, resourceful, inquisitive, and independent. Unlike earlier companions defined primarily by academic roles, Sarah Jane arrived with an established career as a journalist, a profession perfectly suited to her curiosity and courage. While she could find herself in peril, she was equally capable of rescuing the Doctor, reinforcing a partnership built on mutual respect rather than dependency. Sladen's chemistry with both John Pertwee and Tom Baker coincided with one of Doctor Who's most successful periods. Sarah Jane Smith is widely regarded as one of the greatest companions in the show's history, a testament not only to the writing, but to Sladen's adaptability and authenticity. While elements of Sarah Jane Smith drew from earlier companions, Sladen fused these traits into something definitive. Her performance became a blueprint for future companions: the independent, emotionally grounded, intellectually capable, and central to the narrative rather than merely reactive. Such was the character's popularity that Sladen reprised the role numerous times after her departure in 1976. She returned for the 20th anniversary special The Five Doctors, and later appeared alongside David Tennant's 10th Doctor in 2006's School Reunion, bridging the classic series to the modern revival. Her return paved the way for a hugely successful spin-off, The Sarah Jane Adventures, following from an early attempt with 1981's K9 and Company. The series developed its own identity, particularly with younger audiences, and extended Sarah's legacy to a new generation. Elizabeth Sladen remained synonymous with the role until her passing in 2011. Through longevity, emotional authenticity, and her ability to evolve alongside the Doctor, she didn't just play a companion, she reinvented the role. Sticking with performances, my next selection is perhaps a slightly more divisive figure, there is no denying the significance of what she represents in Doctor Who's history. Jodie Whittaker will always be remembered as the first woman to officially portray the Doctor. The idea of a female incarnation had been discussed as far back as the classic series, but it was never acted upon, perhaps considered too radical for its time or lacking the institutional support needed to make such a change. That changed in 2017. Incoming showrunner Chris Chibnall announced Whittaker as Peter Capaldi's successor, ushering in a new era and one of the most significant creative shifts in the programme's history. After more than half a century, Doctor Who has redefined its central role in a way that reflected a changing audience and a changing world. The decision did not win everyone over. Some long-term fans expressed concern about altering such an iconic character. Yet for others, Whittaker's casting represented a powerful moment of inclusion, offering a new role for younger female viewers and broadening who could see themselves reflected in the Doctor. Before Doctor Who, Whittaker had built a strong reputation through roles such as Beth Latimer in Broadchurch. At 35, when she debuted, she brought a youthful energy and emotional openness to the part. In hindsight, her era proved controversial, but many criticisms centered on writing choices and sweeping changes to the show's mythology rather than her performance. As an actor, Whittaker delivered warmth, empathy, and optimism, qualities deeply rooted in the Doctor's character. Her tenure ended in 2022, during a challenging period for the programme's public perception. Yet her impact reaches beyond ratings or story arcs. By embodying the Doctor, Whittaker reframed how audiences viewed the character. The Doctor is not defined by human gender. The character is an alien being whose identity transcends such boundaries. Her casting reinforced that the role is defined by personality, morality, and imagination, not appearance. Because of her, the idea of another actress taking on the role no longer feels experimental or controversial. It feels possible, and that alone marks a barrier broken. Before I move on to my final entry, there are some honourable mentions who, in your opinion, may be more deserving of an entry in this video, but certainly shouldn't be ignored or overlooked. In terms of production roles, there is other female trailblazers, such as the previously mentioned Julia Smith, who quickly followed on in the footsteps from Paddy Russell as a female director in Doctor Who. Maybe Barbara Clegg, the first woman to write a Doctor Who story, or maybe looking at the modern era of Doctor Who, you could look at Julie Gardner, who as head of drama for BBC Wales was tasked with reviving Doctor Who and brought Russell T Davies into the fray. Or maybe in front of the camera, there are other actresses who've made their roles, in particular as companions, iconic. Katie Manning as the ever-resourceful Jo Grant, Louise Jameson as the warrior Leela, and Sophie Aldred as Ace, who, despite being the last companion of the classic era, brought in a streetwise urban feel to the role that was carried on into the new series by the likes of Billie Piper when she played Rose Tyler when the series relaunched in 2005. We shouldn't forget that actresses in Doctor Who also brought about memorable villains. Kate O'Mara introduced us to the Rani, an amoral Time Lord scientist with a sense of style and flair and a personality strong enough to crush her male counterparts. And we couldn't forget Michelle Gomez, redefining the Master with the female incarnation Missy, ushering in a new level of unpredictable psychopath. All these mentioned so far in this video are iconic and have all left their mark on Doctor Who. There is one final mention, a woman whose involvement in the show not only made it possible for all these icons both in front and behind the camera, also made Doctor Who itself possible as a show. Verity Lambert, Doctor Who's very first producer, was responsible for shaping the programme into the iconic series it remains today. Beginning her television career in the 1950s, she worked at ITV's Northwest franchise Granada Television, before moving to ABC, where she rose to the role of production assistant. It was there that she first encountered Sidney Newman, the company's head of drama. After leaving in 1961, Lambert briefly worked in the United States for Talent Associates in New York before returning to ABC with ambitions of becoming a director. In 1962, Newman moved to the BBC as head of drama and became involved in the conception of Doctor Who. Although she was not his original choice, he ultimately recruited Lambert to serve as the programme's producer. At just 27 years old, and with no prior producing experience, Lambert immersed herself in the show's early development, demonstrating a fierce determination and a clear instinct for what the programme needed to succeed. Verity Lambert played a crucial role in persuading William Hartnell to accept the role of the Doctor, recognising that his authority, gravitas, and underlying humour would give the character essential depth. Working within severe budget constraints, she encouraged directors to take creative risks to help the series stand out. During her tenure, directors such as Waris Hussein, Christopher Barry, Richard Martin, and Douglas Camfield helped define the show's visual and dynamic style. Following the recording of the original pilot, Lambert identified key problems and ordered extensive reshoots. These changes ensured that the first transmitted episode, An Unearthly Child, made a bold statement that this was a programme unlike anything else on television. Perhaps her most significant contribution was challenging the programme's original concept. Newman, along with head of serials Donald Wilson, had envisioned Doctor Who primarily as an educational series centred on historical adventures. Lambert saw great potential when she read a script by Terry Nation that would become The Daleks. Despite Wilson's attempts to block the story, Lambert pressed ahead. The serial was produced, the Daleks were born, and Doctor Who's popularity surged. Donald Wilson later conceded that Lambert understood the programme better than anyone else and pledged not to interfere with her decisions again. Verity Lambert remained with Doctor Who until the start of Season 3 in 1965. During her tenure, the programme became a rating success as she steered it towards science fiction storytelling and established a blueprint that continues to shape the series today. After leaving Doctor Who, Lambert produced Adam Adamant Lives, before departing the BBC in 1969. Returning to ITV, she later became head of drama at Thames Television, overseeing productions such as The Naked Civil Servant and Rumpole of the Bailey. She also supervised Thames' subsidiary, Euston Films, which produced The Sweeney and Minder. In the 1980s, she founded her own production company, Cinema Verity, producing both film and television projects. Alongside freelance work, she later produced Jonathan Creek and Love Soup. Awarded an OBE in 2002, Lambert died in 2007, having lived to see Doctor Who revived as a flagship BBC series once again. A risk-taker who challenged convention and empowered creative talent, Verity Lambert helped transform Doctor Who into the cultural institution it is today. More broadly, she was one of the most influential figures in British television across 5 decades. Without Lambert's vision and conviction, Doctor Who might never have succeeded in the way it did. But tell me, what do you think? Have I missed someone important off the list? Maybe I'm overstating certain people's importance. Let me know in the comments below. But for now, it's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.